I don't know if our younger listeners and watchers would know of Bonnie and Clyde, but they probably will at least know the name. A famous duo in American outlaws, really. But you've been writing about Ireland's own Bonnie and Clyde, I suppose, in the last while. And just yesterday, the 18-year-old female half of, I suppose, Bonnie was arrested. Tell us what happened just in this week as she was arrested after a stolen car was crashed.
Yeah, I suppose, Niall, just for context, and I would agree that our older listeners and viewers will know all about Bonnie and Clyde. I think a lot of the younger ones mightn't. But either way, we will get back to the wider points of it. But this is a couple who are very much in love, allegedly, anyway. They're two teenagers. They've been, essentially, they're wanted by every Garda division in the country. Again, we can go back to that, but what you're asking about what happened this week.
Yeah.
So, in the early hours of Tuesday morning, 2 cars were stolen from a property in a village on the outskirts of Monaghan town. It's believed that it was more than just a couple, that there was someone else there. I'll tell you why now, but it's believed that the Bonnie and Clyde, basically, they're a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old, the couple that they are. In one of the stolen cars, it was driven. It's believed to have crashed into a wall near a swimming pool in Monaghan town about 3 a.m. in the morning. Bit before 3 a.m. And the robbery of the cars had happened a bit after 2 a.m. The male suspect, who's kind of one of the most wanted men in Ireland, actually, fled the scene, leaving his girlfriend there. Gardaí, who had earlier noticed the vehicle driving at speed, were quickly on the scene. She was arrested. She was brought to Monaghan Garda Station. She was charged basically with being a passenger in a stolen car and brought to Cavan District Court the next morning, where she was granted bail in relation to that offence.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a relatively standard charge, but the backstory is quite incredible. And obviously, a lot of this happened when she was a minor and underage, under 18. I think she said she's just turned 18.
Yes, just the weekend gone. But I suppose just one final point in relation, and it might just be kind of a clue in relation to what's going on here. After she was granted bail, and she was a long, long way from home. We're not going to say where her home is on this podcast for a variety of reasons, but she walked out at court, and within, I won't say seconds, but definitely within a couple of minutes, she was caught shoplifting by Cavan Town Gardaí. Items of clothing is what she was looking for. Apparently it was for necessity, but she was brought back before the same court who had granted her bail, and she was convicted and fined €250, and then she made her way back to...
It's obviously granted bail again.
In a particular circumstance, she was convicted and fined.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, she, with that fine, the district court fine, she has a month to pay it.
Yeah. So I suppose it brings up a couple of issues. There's one of the issues that we've spoken about before, which is these explosion in car thefts, and also, I suppose, how young and juvenile offenders are being dealt with, and the fact that they're going through the system. But I suppose the Clyde end of this couple first caught your attention, I suppose, earlier this year, because he was serving a sentence for, I suppose, what's described as a crime spree, more of the same sort of stuff, robbing cars, burglaries, across a number of counties. And he was in a Garda station and somehow managed to escape and flee.
So the particular individual, he's from North County Dublin. We're not going to name him here. I don't even know, Niall, to be honest with you, for legal reasons, but for whatever reasons, we're just not right now.
Yeah.
But he, and as you well know about the Maguire faction that are involved in the Drogheda feud, they're a very nasty, insidious criminal organisation. This individual would be highly connected with them in terms of being a relative, but also in terms of what often breaks out between these factions. They're actually feuding with each other at the moment, which makes him in a very volatile situation. The particular individual has amassed a large number of previous convictions as a juvenile, and he had served a sentence in the Midlands. He had met this and she was very much a juvenile, a very much vulnerable juvenile at the time. But he had met her before he was convicted and sentenced to a lengthy enough prison sentence. He was released from the Midlands prison in March. He'd been in there since May in relation to a crime spree, as you describe, across a number of counties. So he got out. He hooked up with this. Again, she was a juvenile at the time. She was 17 years of age. She's not now.
Yeah.
And they basically went around the country committing these kind of crimes, robbing cars, driving off from petrol stations, shoplifting, various other crimes against property. And what happened was, eventually, after a robbery of a car, I believe it was in County Kerry, did a drive off from a petrol station in Santry. He was caught. He went back to his home in North County Dublin. Balbriggan Gardaí were on the case at the time. He was lifted. He was brought to court. He was charged with those offences. He was brought back, as it is something that I never knew, actually, Niall.
Yeah.
I always presumed, when you see the prison officers outside district court,
yeah,
they're there to bring the defendant off to jail.
Yeah.
But no, at district court level, unless they're in custody, you have to go back to the station.
Right, okay, yeah.
That's what happened. He went out, and it's a reasonable enough request, and maybe it's the decency of the guards to say, I want to go out for a fag cigarette.
Yeah.
And he went and out there and jumped the wall.
Presumably now, it's not a 4-foot wall. Presumably you had to do a bit of Spider-Man-like activity.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, Niall, he's not the first to do this.
Not right, yeah.
And there has happened on a number of other occasions, but generally they've always been caught.
Yeah.
But so that's what happened. It actually happened on April 23rd.
Yeah.
And of course there was a garda alert in place about this. But what's kind of unusual that in this particular instance is, since that happened, and I've identified this now 18-year-old girlfriend of his, that they've been basically travelling the country from West Cork, Waterford, Kilkenny, Tipperary, border counties, as we saw this week, basically on a crime spree.
Yeah, and of course this I suppose is where the comparison with Bonnie and Clyde. Now, Bonnie and Clyde were obviously a lot more serious crimes that they committed. They were kind of across, I think they were from Texas originally.
Yeah. Brilliant film, wasn't it?
It's a great film, and there's actually good documentaries and podcasts on them. But what happened with them was they were mostly carrying out armed robberies.
Few murders as well.
Yeah, but actually, initially it was armed robberies, and I think they were disturbed by the police in the US. So this brings it to a whole other scale of what we're talking about with this Irish couple. But the police disturbed them, and they fired back, and police were killed. But really, so that maybe they wouldn't live forever. But why they became famous was, at one point I think they left the camera behind. And they'd taken a load of pictures posing with guns, and she was quite glamorous. And, I think she'd written, she had some diaries at some point, and they just became sort of celebrities and live on, many, many decades later.
Better than burn out and fade away. I know it wasn't invented, but I think it was often, is that in relation to them?
Well, I don't know if that is. That was definitely...
James Dean, is it?
James Dean, and then obviously Kurt Cobain quoted it, but in his suicide note. But so they became kind of celebrity criminals, and of the ilk of Billy the Kid and a few other in American history. And we have our own versions, of course, in Ireland. But I suppose this, individually, the crimes that they are committing, for example, driving off from a petrol station, wouldn't be noteworthy. But when you have them going across counties, robbing cars constantly, it becomes a very serious issue. And it is kind of a broader issue that's starting to maybe escalate within this country, that kind of car theft.
Well, if we just, we have spoken in general often about that matter, but if you even look at what happened in Monaghan this week, in terms of the 2 cars that were stolen, both of those cars ended up crashed. Yeah. As far as I know, one of those cars before this was the car that the girlfriend was arrested beside, was clocked at driving at 180 kilometres an hour on not motorway roads
Yeah.
to the point there was no Garda pursuit. The guards, like, they came across that car. It was just, the roads were just too dangerous. So what you would need to consider, I know this was between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, but like if there was pedestrians around and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we've seen the tragic outworking of that case. There's certainly with Joe Drennan in Limerick, where he was a bystander at an innocent student who was a bystander at a bus stop. And
obviously the Lucky Dip case in Baldoyle, like, you know, so the consequences of this could be tragic.
Yeah.
From what I know in relation to the female that was arrested, I mean, when her family were informed of, because she's barely turned 18, of what happened by the gardaí, they were basically saying to her family, this could be a very different phone call.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't just include her as a passenger. She can't even drive. That could include a couple of innocent people walking home. So look, and
we do have some idea of her family's view on what she's getting sucked into or participating in. Like they I suppose they have a perspective from their own family members' perspective, but they're concerned and very worried.
Absolutely, and they've outlined a number of allegations. I suppose some of them can't be really said here for legal reasons, but what can be said is, in a general way, that they believe, and look, he was an adult, you know, technically. He a good bit older than her, and this girl, this vulnerable child, was palling around with him while he was, you know what I mean, technically an adult.
Yeah.
But for want of, like, it's not for want of a better word, what's been said is that it's coercive control.
Yeah.
And the gardaí, and I mean among so many divisions in this country, he is considered kind of, and you know, it's bizarre in a way we're just not naming him, but that's just the way it is for the moment. But like, he is considered almost the most wanted person in this country. Yeah.
Because of course these alerts go out with the Gardaí. You know, I don't know how regularly they go out, but they don't go out every hour or anything like that. No. So I suppose we've probably seen them over the years or heard of them. It's basically they're put out to each station to keep an eye out for people. And they're only put out in serious cases.
KLO, I think.
Is that what's it stand for?
Yeah, that's the term, yeah.
What, do you know what it stands for?
Keep a lookout.
Keep a lookout. There you go. It's very, who could have
Did you not know that one?
No, I didn't know. I didn't.
Hilarious.
But so they put it out really to make people aware, because it is, you know.
This is bigger than that, Niall, though, in fairness. Like, I mean, look, even though sometimes we're on the show talking about murders and huge scale drug dealing and stuff like that, this individual is considered a very, very dangerous man. Yeah. And even, you know, despite his youth, he's considered very reckless. He has no thought for anybody else. You know, I know we're saying about drive-offs and petrol stations. That's only a part of it. Yeah. Like we've said on the show many times before, the effect of someone waking up to their cars being nicked and their house being broken into, their shop being robbed, all that kind of stuff. But the thing about this guy is, and it's kind of perverse in a way, since he jumped over that wall in Balbriggan on April 23rd, he's been basically, been an exaggeration, of course, to say every Garda division, but he's been prolific just about everywhere. Yeah. And he's almost been caught a few times. Some of the attempts have actually been absolutely, you know, it's bizarre how he's got away. Like, you know. Yeah.
And has it been played out in social media or anything like that as well?
Yes, well, I think you've seen yourself. Yeah. A recent video. Yeah. He's still nicking cars. Yeah. That's despite the fact that this younger girl who he celebrated with her birthday, her 18th, in a hotel. Yeah. I've seen that footage last weekend. That's despite the fact that she's now in custody. Yeah. Or was locked up at the time. He's still going robbing cars, putting up his videos. He has no thought for that female. No. That's the belief of her family anyway.
And that sort of, if you want to go back to the Bonnie and Clyde thing, it sort of updates the modern version of it in another way, in that, like, it was those iconic images of Bonnie and Clyde. I don't know if you remember.
With the guns,
Yeah, with her in particular, like, you know. Yeah. But like that does get played out now on TikTok in particular.
Yeah.
With a lot of these teenage car thieves, really, and the Lucky Dip gang. I mean,
Of course, yeah.
they don't.
It's their currency now.
Yeah, they don't. Like they don't just. It's not just the car. Like they want the video as well. Like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, what sort of reaction is he getting with these things? You'll see the encouragement comments all over the place.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't actually know what kind of reaction he's getting. But, I mean, what I do know is that he is very much sought.
Yeah.
And that's not just, that's southeast, southwest, Dublin. And it's kind of, in a way, very strange that he's, not strange, but he really needs to be kind of brought off the streets, in my opinion. Yeah.
Now, there are issues, of course, as well with people coming before the courts and some of these car thieves, they're getting in and out. I know we're moving maybe away from this couple in particular, but it has proved to be a genuine issue. Certainly if they're under 18, just literally finding somewhere to put them in prison. I mean, they are getting out again. I know we spoke about this in relation to the Lucky Dip gang, but again, there was more cases just in recent days again where the very young teenagers, 15, I think, were being arrested and effectively released straight away.
Yeah, well, look, it's kind of, is it boring now to keep on saying the Obersound is full, but it is a fact.
Yeah.
But as we also know, the prison system is creaking.
Yeah.
So, like, these are also technically non-violent offences.
Yes.
The prisons is like, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't.
Yeah.
With people coming in that are technically non-violent. But look, what I would imagine, if this 19-year-old individual, he's going to actually turn 20 soon, Niall, from North County Dublin, the Balbriggan area.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be fairly confident, because of the amount of charges that are facing him, if he was to be sent to prison, he'd be one person that the authorities would have to say he's staying in.
Yeah.
It's also, I suppose, because of his perceived coercive control in relation to his girlfriend, who today actually appeared before a court. We won't say in what part of the country.
Yeah.
Where I think she faced at least 27 charges.
Yeah.
Now, she never drove any of these stolen cars.
Yeah. But it still remains an offence.
She was a juvenile
in
all these things. She actually got bail again. This is the lady we spoke of earlier.
Yeah.
And my information is there's many, many more charges coming to her.
Yeah.
But that would be a minimum of all the charges that the guards have ready for her boyfriend.
Yeah.
So you are talking about hundreds of charges.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll continue to follow this, and it may get to a point where we attend some of a court hearing and report on that.
Well, I'd like that.
Yeah.
Take care, man.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.